Urban segregation is still very much alive in the District of Columbia, our city. But that doesn't come as a surprise to most of you. You just have to look at the neighborhoods you live in. Look at the venues you frequent. Look at your social circles. Look at our schools. Even within one of the more racially and ethnically diverse metropolitan areas in the United States, many of us still self-segregate, either intentionally or naturally. Why is that? Why is that after segregation was legally ended in the District of Columbia in 1953, 1 year before it was ended in the rest of the nation, the Anacostia River quite literally marks a divide between black and white in the city? You and I both know that when someone is talking about east of the river, they're talking about poor black communities. And when someone says upper Caucasia, they're talking about upper Northwest, where upper middle class people live, and you will find that 85 to 95% of those communities are white in a city where the white population is only 40%. So why the deep-seated divide? I'll tell you why. Decades of discriminatory housing and financial practices like redlining denied access to loans and insurance for blacks and other minorities. Decades of law and order, war on drugs, and tough on crime, scare tactics, dog whistle politics, and law enforcement policies have jostled white America into thinking that black and brown Americans are to be feared and avoided, prompting white flight from our urban centers and our public schools. And now, through the process of so-called economic revitalization known as gentrification, minorities are being pushed out of their historic urban communities into segregated Maryland and Virginia suburbs. Kingman Park, Benning Road, Minnesota Avenue, and so many other DC communities are experiencing the mixed bag that is gentrification, including the fearful and antagonistic response of black and Latino residents at the arrival of whites in their neighborhood. The phenomenon of urban segregation is incredible. We know that segregated schools create a discrepancy wherein majority white schools in urban settings consistently outperform and out-resource majority minority schools. We understand that cultural competency and exposure to diversity are the keys to maneuverability and social mobility in this globalized economy. And we know that segregation only fuels the forces of disunity that seek to tear our city and our nation apart. Yet we let it persist. So what will it take for us as a city to reverse the effects of intentional and de facto segregation? Well, I'm not an urban planner, a human geographer, or a sociologist. I do have a few proposals that might bring the change we seek. My first proposal is to create programs that intentionally integrate the city's residents, especially the youth. We spend thousands of dollars every year to send students to foreign countries to indulge in their rich culture and heritage. Yet we have students right here in the District of Columbia who don't understand each other and how they live. We need to do intra-DCPS student exchanges. We need recreational sports teams comprised of students from diverse neighborhoods, not just one single neighborhood. And we need to bring the music and culture of some of our rich and diverse neighborhoods into public venues where Washingtonians can create a mutual understanding of each other. My second proposal is to create more affordable housing throughout the city. The racial segregation in DC is also one of income. Many black and brown Washingtonians occupy the lowest niches of the district economy. You compile that with decades of institutional racism at the public and private levels, and now you've condemned multiple generations to live and die in the neighborhoods and economic brackets that their parents and grandparents were forced into. A colleague of mine in the Youth in Government program has written a bill which proposes a system of housing subsidies based on income brackets and family sizes in order to give DC families a diverse set of housing options across the city at a more affordable rate. And finally, my third proposal is more of an appeal to the individual rather than institutional level. I urge you all to examine yourselves. Take some time for introspection to see if there's an aspect of your life that contributes to this narrative of segregation. You may feel that you are a victim of segregation and discrimination, or you may not. But either way, what are you doing to fight against the system? What are you doing to raise awareness about it? And what are you doing to rise above it? Don't assume that the minorities moving into your neighborhood means that your neighborhood is on the decline. And don't assume that the white family moving into your neighborhood means that rapid and vicious gentrification will soon overtake your community. Take the time to get to know and to understand people. We ask politicians to reach across the political aisle in order to make change at the institutional level. But what are we doing? Are we reaching across the river? We need to examine our mindsets and eliminate the explicit and implicit biases that we each harbor. And together, this collective action will break the barriers of oppression and discrimination and transform Washington into a more integrated, inclusive, and tolerant city. I thank you for your time.